What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Decoded. It is September 30th, 2024, last day of the month, and it's 4:08 in the afternoon. Today's market was a little wonky, and then when Jerome Powell came on at precisely 155, he started to yapping, and then the market started to moving, and we actually found what ended up being the best trade of the day. Now, I didn't take it because I don't trade that late in the day, but quite a few people did. And if you caught any of that downside, we just needed to wait for the right thing to take place. When it happened, everything fell into place and you got paid by the money train. And then shortly thereafter, I had to leave the mic at 3 o'clock today because I had to pick up my kids from school and Dungeons and Dragons camp and all that stuff. So I didn't make it back for the run up. But the last thing I let everybody know just before we left was, guys, it could move up, it could move down. Just remember the rules. If we're putting in lower highs, you want to be considering puts, just waiting for breaks of support. If we're putting in higher lows, you want to be staying away from puts, looking to get into calls. Just wait for breaks of resistance. If you just follow those rules, you will find yourself on the positive side of more trades than you currently are. I'm telling you, give it a try. But without further ado, let's go ahead and launch the charts. We're going to get through this pretty quick because you guys have the retention span of a goldfish, and I love you. So you don't watch the long ones, so I try and make them shorter, and then I get yelled at for not having enough information in them. I don't know how to win. But with that said, pre-market was not exciting for me at all. In fact, I was not a fan of pre-market to begin with, and therefore I had a hard time coming up with call put lines. Now, as you could see, we had a call line right here at 570.63. Which was basically just us getting above the pre-market high, and we were expecting or hoping for it to run up to the first target. Now, that all happened, and I wasn't in it. And the reason I wasn't in it was because I just didn't like pre-market and the way it was building up leading into the open. You know, it looked very gappy, very spotty, very low volume like. I didn't have a good feeling about it having continuation in one way or the other. And then Steve, if you know, you know, slapped me right in the face. He said, Jimmy, you hesitated. You should have played your call line like you do every other day. Qs spiked up. I wanted the Qs to get above their pre-market high. They did that, and I still didn't execute the trade. Likewise, while we were moving up and turning these lines into support, again, I could have had the opportunity to get in for another leg up. I didn't take it. I didn't feel good about calls. So naturally, I decided, well, maybe I'll feel good about puts. We just had to wait for the right reason to consider puts. While we were topping out up here at resistance around 936, 937, we noticed, even though Qs hadn't made up to their next target, but they were clearly starting to put in some struggling to move higher. Okay. Now at this time, ADD is still following or still going down. So here we are considering the fact that, hey, small caps are selling off. Qs are at resistance. Let's see if we can find justification to take a counter trend trade. Okay. Now, SPY's at resistance. Qs are developing a resistance. ADD is already going down. Okay. What we were hoping for was lower highs, which we put in at 940 on Qs and SPY. Hopefully, we were going to break support, which is my belief always, in that we will head down to the next support. So initially, we got into this trade with the understanding that, hey, lower highs usually means we're going to break support, which it did, and then head down for the next support, which it didn't do. Our stop loss was a candle close above this resistance high of day. And as you can see, well, we put that damn line to the test, and my booty hole was puckering like it was nobody's business. Now, fortunately, this trade ended up making it back down to where I originally wanted it to go, which was our original call line. You could see it's right here. We had an alert set there. And the beauty of this trade was there was nothing beautiful about it at first. We got in because of lower highs. We had the opportunity to get out with decent profit very quickly. It pulled back. We start regretting. It comes back down. You're back into profit. We pull back. We start regretting holding again, but we're staying below the trend line. Qs struggling to move higher. Ultimately, and fortunately, this thing broke to the downside like we hoped it was going to. And then the Qs continued to run all the way down to the orange line we were aiming for originally on the Qs was 486.28, which is right here. Thankfully, we hit both those lines at the same time. We had an alert right here on this line. You could see it. That's where I was targeting to get out of this trade. Got in here at 941, got out here at 959. Very long trade for me, very uncomfortable at times because it wasn't doing what I thought it was going to do at the rate that I hoped it would do it. Fortunately, a whole bunch of us took that trade. Most of us stayed in that trade. Most of us got rewarded at the end of that trade. Fortunately, that was my one and done. This was a whole month of one and done for me, which was fun to do and quite lucrative, right? But it is nice to be done at the end of the day by 10 o'clock in the morning. Now, at 10 o'clock, had we not hit that line, it's always best to get out of your trade before any 10 o'clock candles. Okay, we don't know if these candles are going to be big green ones, big red ones, nothing burgers. You'll never know. But there's been many times where I'm sure you've been holding a trade through 10 o'clock. Some have gone for you bigly. Some have gone against you very bad and very quick. I don't like to play that game typically. So I am glad that we were able to get out of this trade literally a minute before 10 o'clock because it did pull back, still respected the trend line, but that support there was where we were hoping to get both on Qs and SPY, and it did that. Okay, so that was that trade. We were maintaining lower highs, right? So in this pattern, I tell people all the time because they're asking me, Jimmy, where would you consider calls? I said, guys, remember the criteria. If we're putting in lower highs, we're looking for puts. Well, if we're wedging down, statistically speaking, where does that move typically break? Down or up? Well, down. So we're pushing all this weight up against support. We want to wait or assume that this support is likely to fail. And if it does, we're looking for it to run right down here because that's the next support in line. We're breaking what was old resistance turned support, and we're hoping that it runs down to the next support. Okay, that's all we're doing. We get the break of the support, we stay pretty much below it, but still maintain a downtrend, and ultimately we make our move down to the support we were aiming for. So that was the second trade opportunity. But win calls, Jimmy, win calls. Tell us, please, win calls. When we're no longer trending down, we want a candle close above the trend line, and you want to take out the next resistance to your left. Well, those two things both happen right here. Great. Now, is the move from here to the next line worth playing? It's 23 cents. So yes, if you're aggressively trading it, you might say, hey, high or low, this is likely to fail, not hold. So you definitely don't want to buy puts here because we're coming off higher lows. And we have several traders that play aggressively, that see this higher low, just like we saw this lower high, and say, hey, this is a good opportunity to get in a little aggressively. ADD was moving in our favor at that time. We're expecting support to fail and hopefully makes it down to the next support. Doesn't work every time, but it is good justification for several people, myself included. Higher lows. So if you look at this and you say, hey, I'm expecting this to fail, you might get in simply because we broke the downtrend, or we closed above it, or we wicked above the resistance line we needed to break. And that's the case, then you're well into profit. Or if you got in here and you said, hey, I'll just see what happens when we get to the next resistance, which is this yellow line, we closed above it. When we close above resistance in an uptrend, we expect it to go to the next resistance. It happened here. Well, if we close above that resistance, we expect it to go to the next resistance, which is here. We didn't close above it here. We pulled back, found support, and bounced up and did all kinds of crazy things. Now, I had some people that wanted to play puts again. This was nothing to trade. This was an entry for calls here. These were entries for puts based on all the things we like to look for. For the downside, we have a line drawn over here on this chart. What you want to do is wait for two criteria. Number one, wait for a break of the uptrend line. You get that here, okay? Number 2, we want to cross below the first level of support down, which was right here. And we want to take that, we want to take that level of support to the next support, which in this case was here. And if we get through that, we're looking for the orange line. If we get through that, you're looking for this support. And as you can see, if you got in simply because we closed below support here, which would have gotten you in here, we stayed below resistance, we continued down to each support, subsequently down, okay, until we find the one that it's no longer going to break. You'll never know which one it's going to stop at. So if you choose to hold through each one of these levels, that's fine. Slide a stop in place to protect you in the event that this one holds. If it doesn't, awesome, you stay in to the next one. You move your stop a little bit tighter. If it breaks through that support, awesome, you stay in. It moves down to the next one. Now, this one we were talking about getting in for all the reasons. And I told everybody, guys, at this point, I would hold on to this trade because ADD, if I'm not mistaken, is selling off with a decent sized red candle. Let's go check ADD at 1138. Yes, right here. I said ADD is printing a sizable red candle. I would hold on to this trade a little bit longer because there might be more room to the downside. So at 1138, here we are on the Qs and SPY, printing red. Qs were on support. And somebody was saying, Jimmy, will you get out here? I said no, because ADD seems like there's going to give more room to the downside. So yeah, you're able to stay in this trade because of the confluence from ADD. Okay. And we're hoping for the Qs to make it down to the pink line, which is exactly where we got. Both on Qs to the pink line, ADD was selling off, SPY was still on its way to the support down here that we were hoping to get. All of those things happened. So your entry was because we broke support after breaking a downtrend. Your exit was because we made it down to a support that happens to line up with the Qs and line up with SPY. Support on SPY. Pink line was support on Qs. Okay, 1138, where are we at here? Right here. Or 41, sorry. So 41, Qs hits the pink line. SPY hits this support right here. Double bottom. Same time. I always tell everybody, guys, if your inputs in Qs and SPY are coming down to a support level that coincides with each other's charts, it's a good time to consider taking those profits. If not, put a stop loss in place in case it holds and does what it did. Okay. After that, we bounced off of that, continued up, and there wasn't much to do here. So we weren't talking about much other than emotions. Today was, we had a lot of talks about emotions and stuff today. And then after I get back from lunch, Jimmy, is there any plays to take? This ended up being the best trade of the day. I told everybody, I said, look, I wouldn't do anything because we knew Jerome Powell was going to be talking at 155. So 155 is right here. Okay. Kind of got a doji candle there for a second. We bounced up, still not enough to be comfortable in calls. I said, guys, I really wouldn't do anything unless if it's to the downside, you better wait for the Qs to get below that pink line. I want to show you something about this pink line. On the Qs, we managed to get through it just one time. And the only time that we did took us straight down to 484.60. One of the lines we drew at 8:30 in the morning. Okay. Stopped abruptly at that point. So every time we touched the pink line after we got back above it, we weren't able to get through it. That's a lot of buying to keep that from happening. Well, if we turn those buyers into sellers, they're going to turn into sellers and help the move go down. Well, we happen to know exactly where it's likely to go down to if it gets back below that pink line. Okay, this is all we're looking for. So we are coming off lower highs. We breached the pink line, 213. We're aiming for 484.60 minimum. So if you got in because we breached the pink line coming off of lower highs, that's all we were waiting for. You got in at 213. And if you're making this a nice, easy trade, you got out 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes later to the penny. Now, at this time, ADD was still moving down. There was no reason to get out of that trade at that point. And we ran all the way down to our 5th level down on Qs. If we got below that, we were really hoping that we would get all the way down that $2 drop right there. Didn't happen. But nonetheless, beautiful trade to the downside. Massive trade. Had somebody make $700 in a minute, a little over a minute on this drop. Guys, if you just wait for the right setups, even when it's later in the day, you can often be rewarded. Now, this was on the back of whatever Jerome Powell was saying. Okay, I don't take late day trades because the dynamic of the market and everything that I use to make my morning trades, it all changes. Theta, less volume, less volatility, more lines of support and resistance. That's what happens later in the day we go. For my trading strategy, that diminishes my win rate. My win rate after 12 o'clock drops below 50%. And I don't know about you, but that ain't good enough for me. And I'm not going to go out of my way to unlearn everything that I've learned that works in the morning so that I can trade later in the afternoon. That's ridiculous. And the number of people in my community that are growing to find that the fewer trades they take per day, the better and more progress they're making their accounts is a beautiful thing. You all should give it a try. But with that, I was gone at 3 o'clock. So I didn't catch any of this move to the upside, nor was I here to suggest any trades. And I usually don't because I don't anyway. But this one was unique in that there was news. We broke below a strong level of support, which was the pink line. We had a very good idea of where it would go if it did that. It did all of those things and more. So kudos to those of you guys who took that trade. You got to ride on the gravy train. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Hope you found some useful information in this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to join our Discord community, well, for now, it is accessible to everybody. But I am going to be making a change come New Year's. I think I'm going to make it only available to paying members because the number of scammers that are showing up in here because its a front door is wide open, it's causing me more grief than it is worth. Okay. So if you're trying to get into the community right now with not having to sign up for anything, you just jump in. You're able to do that from now until the end of this year. At the end of this year, you'll still be able to get your free week. You're just going to have to sign up through a platform that will validate you as a human being and as a person so that I can help minimize and mitigate the scammers that Discord has no control over whatsoever. So with that said, hope you all had a fantastic day. Till tomorrow, guys. I love you. See ya.